stop marketing what you think people want to hear. Stop marketing the
Yeah.
elements of the structured
Yeah.
offer, value, offer. No, like stop that. If your content calendar was just who you innately are called to be and who you are gifted at being because of the way that you abide in your identity, the one who identifies you, okay? Nobody else, no other human being can do that. Your spouse can't do it, your kids can't do it, your business doesn't do it.
Mm,
Is you will have an abundant fruit. And what I mean by fruit is it's referencing Galatians 5:22, which says
right.
the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and long-suffering. Okay,
Mm,
if you were to go through that and choose the one that you feel is your abundance factor. If you feel, people would say it's your it factor. Like,
yeah.
what is your it
Your
factor?
it factor.
For
Yeah.
me, it's joy.
Welcome back to the Dana Grant Show, where we are focused on faith, heart centered action. And I have got a treat for you today. I have Tamra Andress in the house, and you're going to want to listen. You're going to want to really lean in. I mean, shut off everything else and put your headphones on and soak this up. Now, this is take two. We just actually had a brilliant hour, and I didn't hit the record button. And she is kind enough to stay for a second round, and I hope we can capture the magic because I'm going to tell you it was magical. You're going to want to know this woman. She is a powerhouse, 7-time, 7X best-selling author. She's a publishing house. She's a mama. She's a wife. I mean, welcome.
Thank
You are
you.
something.
Thank you. I'm so excited. So are you. That's why we get to hang out and roll together. This is going to be an
Yeah.
awesome conversation. And
We're old school now.
we are. We're old buddy OGs.
Yep. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We started off going a little bit at being an entrepreneur, going back behind the scenes of what brought you here. And I mean, I met you years ago and you were like a burst of sunshine then. I'm like, who is this woman? I mean, I have our original picture together and you're just
Ah,
like beaming. And I love that picture, by the way.
it's so good.
Um,
It really is. That event was
yeah.
amazing.
So let's go back. Let's go back to what
Yeah.
brought you here and do the back end of your story because I think it can inspire so many.
100%. Yeah. So it's the knowledge point and the representation that people see us on a podcast and they see the social media and they see the highlight reels of center stage and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I think without knowing this, it does get to a place of comparison. It gets to a place of judgment. It
Yeah.
gets to a place of ego, maybe from us and also from other people from an envy lens. And I never want that to be the story. And so I am very wide open about the backstory and the life that I've led and the life that I'm living with intention of helping people unpack that for themselves. So
Right.
I had a rock, not bottom, but rock foundation
Mhm.
experience because I stood back up. And I think you can too, no matter where you're at in life right now. But this was when I was 29 years old and I was running two companies. One was an international nursing bra line that I had come from the Australian market and I was bringing to the UK, Canadian, and North American markets, and also a local brick and mortar store. I was working like 60 or 70-hour work weeks and sun up to sundown, as you could imagine, alongside my entrepreneur husband, who was in launch phase of his company. And we had two kids under the age of 2. We were the youngest kids in the neighborhood, and we
Woo.
were kids. We had the nicest cars. We had the white picket fence, all the things. It was literally, people called us Barbie and Ken, Dana. And it looked like it from the outside in, but
Yeah.
internally, I was so dry. I was literally plastic, as was Barbie. And it was a really sad encounter, but it was my story. I come in after one of those long work days. I hadn't seen my daughter yet or my son, but my daughter
Mhm.
had just gotten done nursing. So I was still in that like real connected phase. And
Mhm.
she was barely waddling. She was a super early walker, 9 months old. And she had this moment with me in the driveway where I was excited to hold her, but she looked at me, she smiled, and she turned around and walked to my husband. And as any parent would, you have an option. You have a choice in that moment. Are you going to pursue the one that you love and you want snuggles from, that adores
Mhm.
you, but is just probably playing? Or are you going to go inside? And in that moment, my work was most important. It was the dollar signs that were dinging on my phone. It was the email that I had to send. It was the connections that
Mm.
I need to make. And so I decided to just whisk right past her and take that moment for myself because she was fine. He was fine. And when I walked into my house, I saw my first like real vision. And I don't know if anybody experiences visions. It's kind of like a dream, but you're awake and you see what's transpiring. And it was a tombstone. And I looked at it, and all it said on it was entrepreneur, which, I was a perfectionist and an achievement driven woman, right? And so I'm like, I need like 12 more accolades on that tombstone for it to make sense. But all I had was entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
while I was so upset with that, if I was to look to my schedule, that was representative of what I was doing day in and day out. All my attention was on it. And I knew I had a choice. I had a choice that is this the life that I want to lead? Or do I actually want to be what I think most people want is they want to say wife when they're a wife, that wants it to say mother when they're a mother, and a good one, in fact, a daughter when they're a daughter, a friend when they're a friend. And for me, my faith is so critical. I want it to say child of God, and I was not walking in integrity in any of those roles. So
Wow.
that's where my backstory started, and a lot has happened since then.
Yeah. That's a big moment. And we talked about earlier that people often get signs and dismiss them. You didn't dismiss this.
I couldn't. I mean, so many things. It felt like this explosion went off after
Yeah.
that. I mean, choices after that look like, are you going to get divorced or are you not going to get divorced? Are you going to be with your kids full time or are you not going to be with your kids full time? Are
Mm.
you going to be this multimillionaire? I had signed a 9-figure contract for that one, right? Like,
Mm.
is that really what's going with you to heaven? You can't take a hearse to heaven, is what my pastor used to say. And all
Yeah.
of the answers ended up being no. But the biggest one that was hardest for me was the fact that in the midst of all of that, and those titles being ripped away, and those roles being ripped away, and that money being ripped away, was that I would stand in the mirror. And actually, for 30 days, I didn't stand in the mirror. Even when I brushed my teeth, I would
Mm.
walk out because I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel seen, and I didn't feel lovable. And here I am with these two babies who all they want is my love. My
Yeah.
husband, all he needs is my love. And I wasn't capable of even like conjuring that up. And so I really went on a journey of self excavation, of finding out who I am. What does Tamra's identity actually mean? And who is actually her maker? Not the world, not MTV, not her mom, not these businesses, not her degree, not any of these things that have been externally forced on me as a part of my identity, but rather an internal life bloodline that I got to actually live out.
I know that you actually took 3 years and tell us about that. You stepped back
Yeah.
and took 3 years to
Yeah.
not just reinvent, reconnect. I could call rewire, reconnect,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, I don't
Tell
think
us
there was any
about what,
reinvention because it would have gone back to the mess that I had already curated in my life.
yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't have a timeline, right? It wasn't something that I had a
right.
timeline for. I did have a grace period of not having to rush or run in to something else. Now, that did not mean that my husband's business was flourishing. It meant that we went into a lot of debt, and that debt then later got paid off, which is amazing, but
Yeah.
I knew that in order for me to have that tombstone, in order for it to truly be like etched, carved, like sealed, secured, I needed to have the confidence of looking in the mirror again. I mean, that is so profound for people to be able to love themselves. And so for the
Mhm.
first year, I went to a year-long worship school. You don't want to hear me sing, and I don't play any instruments. So I was the only person that looked like, who is this person in this place and what is she doing? But it was the first time I ever felt called to do
Yes.
something. And it shifted my lens of understanding that in my life, all I had ever done was idolize everything else, including myself, besides laying all of
Mm.
those things down and actually looking to the divine. And
Mhm.
I didn't understand what that even meant. And so this year was like a year of worshiping all of the beauty that has surrounded me, worshiping and understanding the
Mm.
blessings that were bountiful in my life, and really coming to a place of gratitude and contentment, which we hear a lot about. But like contentment, like rest in your identity is just unbelievable. And then the 2 years after that, I got my ordination and minister's licensing and ultimately ended up in a coffee shop with a friend who was like, you should do this. And I was like, I should do what? We had just spent about an hour together, like vision casting this idea that she had. She's like, you should business coach. And I'm like, I don't know what that means or what that looks like. And I should have had one before, but I ended up getting thrust into this environment of the arena of coaching. And I was so incredibly grateful to ultimately be able to extract gold from people, understanding their backstories, which is what I had
Mhm.
just come through for 3 years of understanding the backstory, what led you to this vacant tombstone, and then to be able
Right.
to catalyze people from that place.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is. I should
I
take a
mean,
deep
I
breath
mean,
and drink
you
water.
did you ever lose your faith during this period of
Oh,
time? Did
well,
you ever have moments where you thought the bottom was gonna, yeah.
I didn't even have faith at that moment when I saw that tombstone. I was a what we call a creaster, a
Mm,
Christian that went to on to church on Easter and Christmas. Like I knew
mm.
Jesus' birthday. I knew
Did
when
you say
he
priester? Priester.
creaster, a creaster Christian. Christmas and Easter. That's all you get.
Oh, I love that.
I
I
like
never heard that. I've never heard that before, but I like it. That's great.
It's good. It's simple, right?
Yeah, it's
Because you're
good.
like, what
Yeah.
kind of Christian are you? Oh, you're a creaster. That's one of the 17,000 denominations. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so just like I didn't know the depths of my faith that I know now. I didn't know the depths of my creator that I know now. The faith walk was really blind. And that's ultimately what it is. We know this now, but I just had so many like audible moments. I had so many visual moments. I had so many dreams and signs and wonders. I came through that season like so on fire for God because it was a non-negotiable to me and I knew what I knew. There was no one could tell me otherwise because I saw it. I witnessed it. I've experienced. I am one of those miracles.
Yeah. I'm not even going to look down at my 3 pages of notes. I'm just going to say, what happened next?
Oh, well, I think a part of it is like the knowingness of I mentioned this backstory. How do you get to be this person at 29? But really what happened when that 3 year time frame was I understood the backstory of what had led me to that vacancy, what had led me to that void, what had led me to that empty tombstone.
Right.
And it was sexual trauma that had occurred in my life at 3 years old. I then was exposed to pornography around the age of 5. And from there, my life really circled and spun out into two versions of myself. I had this secret identity, I had this secret, like, closet life. And then I had this public facing mask that I wore in order to make everyone around me know that I was happy. And there, you mentioned me as sunshine. My whole life, people have said, you light up a room, like you're the life of the party, your smile is radiant. But I always took that as something that I had to do because that was now an expectation. Rather,
Mm,
now I don't lean on my capability of doing that. I lean on
right.
God's work through me, and I can rest in the days that you don't see me overly excitable, and you still will always receive joy from me. So, coming to this knowledge point of suppression, I went to therapy for the first time right after that tombstone moment. And while it took me a couple therapists, the third therapist that I saw, it was my third session with my third therapist. And she asked me if I was a sex addict. Have I ever heard of it? And I'm like,
Mm,
absolutely not. I am a married woman. I've been with them, people I can count on my one hand. I don't
yeah.
know what you're talking about. And she essentially invited me to read this book that was literally my story. And I, the third chapter in, while I was reading in my room, fell to the floor in fetal position. Washed over me was all of the memories of these traumas that I had had in my life, specifically the encounter when I was 3. And I just had this ultimate revelation of recognizing the person that was in the shadows was just this broken, sad, lonely girl. And I had an opportunity in that 3 years time frame to not only meet her, but to help heal her and to come into alignment with the version that she is now and to walk life out like fully bloomed versus in that masked encounter. If you imagine like the mask to take away a little bit of the heaviness, like Jim Carrey in The Green Mask when he's
Yeah.
like, this is who I am. I want to be this version of myself versus the moment when he can't take the mask off. That was my rock foundation. I didn't know. I didn't know that this was a facade. I
Nice.
didn't know that this was a mask. I wasn't trying to put on a front. I thought I was this bubbly person all the time, but
Yeah.
when something's not right, when something's void, when you're getting married and you feel like is this really what I want to do? When you're having a child and you're like, I don't want her life to look like mine. You have these like thought patterns from your past
Yeah.
that will surface. And that's what trauma does to us. And that's what will keep us stuck in cycles. And so, really breaking a cycle and starting anew is a really profound thing that I love to help people do.
Oh, yeah. How important is healing trauma to being financially and fiscally successful?
You literally can't do it any other way.
Yeah.
If it's unavoidable, or you're going to be broke. And I think broke,
Yeah.
yes, finance is a huge part of wealth, but it's the wealth factor that I think we need to
Yeah.
focus on above all. I don't
Yeah.
know that everyone is meant to be a millionaire, Dana. I think they're all going to amass to millions in their life, but I
Mm.
don't know that everyone is meant to steward that. And so I don't really look to push people into like some prosperity gospel that doesn't exist, that wasn't God's promise. But
Right.
God's promise is wealth, a life of wealth and a life of prosperity. And prosperity looks like so many other things than just finances. And so, just like that sense, like I said, contentment, or that sense of peace that you can have, that sense of rest and not like
Mm.
running, like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's running, but to where? Like, I don't want people to do that anymore.
Mm. I I love that. I love how you just laid that out. I mean, I say it in different language, but
Yeah.
that language just it speaks to my soul. It speaks to me. And you being this faith-driven entrepreneur, and I look at you as having a publishing house, and you have a business ecosystem
Yeah.
that is your foundation. It's what you say. You didn't say rock bottom. What did you say before?
Rock
I don't
foundation. It is the
Rock Foundation. I don't
foundation.
think we said it
Yeah.
yet. We said it on the last podcast that didn't tape,
Yeah.
but we're here now on the
It's
Rock
good. It's good.
Foundation.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So a business ecosystem, like the concept of that, and like I mentioned, when I brought those 30 women in, I launched with a
Yeah.
membership, and I didn't even know I was doing that. I did not know what this meant. I'd never been infused into the online business world. This was
Yeah.
8 years
Just
ago.
doing your
So
thing.
I had an Instagram account and I had like 2,000 followers. At that time, felt like a ton. And, I just was doing what I was felt led to do. And that was serving people really well and walking life out with them. That was like one step ahead. I think it's Brendan Burchard who says you only have to be one step ahead, or one page ahead if you're a publisher and you love books, one page ahead for you to teach someone. And that's what I was doing with a local community of women here. And eventually that turned into coaching. Eventually that turned into an ecosystem that was built out with retreats and conferences and one on one coaching and group coaching and books, and then another book, and then another book, and then publishing house, and
Yeah.
so many incredible community members. And I have 3 podcasts, and I love to help other people develop their conferences and retreats. So it really has grown into this sturdy foundation. And I mentioned the concept of like looking at it like a table, and every revenue
Yeah.
stream is a different leg. And if I go into a season like I did when I was 29, and I need to pause and I need momentum to kind of like stay steady, but me to slow down as a human, I can remove a leg and I can still be standing. The companies can still stand on its own. And that's what I
Mm.
want to help people do, is to recognize that they can build something that has longevity past themselves. And I think ultimately build to exit, right? I want everyone to be able to conceptualize what that could look like for them.
I love that build to exit. You know, Again, I focus on the publishing house. How can a book be a full-fledged movement, a
Oh,
business movement? Talk
well,
to me
build to
about that,
exit
because I
is
think it's one of
actually,
your
yeah.
yeah.
Build to Exit is actually one. So my friend Jason Cisneros has started that, and he's creating this movement of people who are ready to do that same thing. And it is premised on a book. Imagine that. So
Ooh.
if you take your life, whether it's a memoir, whether it's a self-help, a reflection, we don't like to have books as business cards, but your book,
Yeah.
right? And we look to how that's actually going to sell. How are we going to get that into more hands? How is it going to serve? Who is it going to transform? A book is not meant to be handed to someone just for an accounting ability, right? It's just like a butt in the seat at a church does nothing at the end of the day if there's not transformation, if there's not discipleship, if there's not
Mhm.
a next step opportunity for that person to grow into who they're meant to become. That's what I
Mhm.
want the books that we serve to do. I want there to be a next step. I want there to be something else that's happening in the sphere of influence that they can say, this book was so good, Dana. I needed that wisdom from you, but I really
Mm,
want more. How do I hang out with you more often? How do I get this wisdom on a daily basis? How do I get this
mm,
wisdom one to one? And those are the things that we want to unpack to allow people to build this ecosystem ultimately and recognize that ecosystems have movements connected to them because now it's not just about you. You're not a
yeah.
solo entity with a solo book who's sold a
Mm,
couple books. You have
yeah.
all of these people who are constantly your biggest advocate because you've been a part of their transformation journey. I don't have to sell to anyone. I just get to show up. They have transformation because that's what God does through people who are willing and humble enough to let that happen. And
Right.
there's a connection point. There's a sisterhood, a brotherhood of relationship, and that's what God is about. He's about relationship.
Wow. So everybody wants to write a book. I don't
Yeah.
think there's one person that I've ever spoken to that says, I got a book inside me, or
Yeah.
I should write a book.
Well, that you say that, but of
Yeah.
the mass population of people, 7 billion people, only 1% of the human race will actually write a book. So we're in an industry where it feels
Astonishing.
like everyone is going to write a book. I think there's also a big difference if I have a book in me and I have a book in my
Mm,
hand, because a
mm,
lot of people have books in them, but a lot of people don't execute. And so
right.
you're an executor. You say, I'm going to have a podcast and now I have a podcast. I'm going to host an
Mm,
event and now I'm going to have an event. And
yeah.
I love the accountability piece of that. I actually have in my book, Always Becoming, which is a memoir of that season while also helping people walk it out themselves. I
Mhm.
talk about the smartest goals, which you've probably heard of SMART. It's specific, measurable,
Yep.
attainable, realistic, and timely. But the
Yep.
EST is so critical. E is to evaluate that it's meant for you.
Ooh.
I think a lot of times we don't do that. We don't evaluate and we're just like, oh, she has a book, so I should have a book. Well, maybe it's not the right season. Maybe you're not even a
Yeah.
writer. Maybe that's not for you
Yeah.
at all. Maybe you're a speaker. That's okay. And then S is to share. That's that accountability piece. So as
Mm,
soon as the thing comes in and I know it's mine, I have evaluated and God is like, yep, Tamra, that's your next step. I immediately share and I do a reverse engineer. I set the date and I do all the details later. So if I know I'm taking women to Costa Rica, which I've done before, I will set the date. I will announce it to my community. I don't have a house. I don't know how much it's actually going to cost fully. I don't even have my own airline ticket. I don't even know where we're going to go. And then I work backwards from there and execute. And the last one is T, is tailor made. Do not follow the crowds to create how it's going to come to fruition. Tailor make it so that you have an individualized value asset that no one else
mm.
can touch. So when people say stuff to me, they're like, Tamra, I'm going to start a publishing house. Tamra, I'm going to start a coaching company. I step forward, Dana, into that conversation and I say, I dare you.
Oh,
I
I
dare
love it.
you to do that because it is not easy to do what we do.
I know. I
And
double dog dare you.
right, I double dog, like, go do that thing. I would applaud you if it works out. I want that
Yeah.
to be your thing. But because you're doing it because you think I'm successful and you think that's your ticket to success, it's never
Mm.
going to work.
I love again. I should just like have a big stamp. I'm gonna buy one of those big stamps and I'm gonna go
That would be
being love,
great.
because like I love it because I do because I know there's truth and wisdom in it.
Yeah.
And I know that this work is not easy and it takes a lot to show up and
Yeah.
you can't do it on your own.
No.
I often say, it's not me. It's just
Right.
like, it's just going through me because there's no way I could show up to this degree
It's so
or
true.
tape for an hour with you and then do take two and we're just like being on fire all
Rolling
again.
again. I don't know which
It's
one's better at this point. You guys
I
got
know it's just
a whole nother
divinely
thing.
guided. I mean, I don't think we've missed a beat, and the first one was great. I'm like, oh, that's the
Yes.
best podcast ever. And but I think it's really about who you are and
Yeah.
how connected you are in your core values, how connected you are to your faith, how connected you are to this story. There was nothing rehearsed. We're not looking at notes. This is just flowing through you of
Yeah.
how you show up and serve. And I think that service and gratitude are some of the highest vibrational things we can do. And I watch you every day show up and serve and serve. And I don't think you've ever left me a message where you don't say, is there anything I can do for you, Dana? And I'm like, oh, no, maybe, sorta, yes. And
Yes. We
and
need
the
to say
last,
yes
yeah,
more.
and the last podcast, and you're a great identifier. I said you're just like a joystick, one of those little sparkle sticks on 4th of July. You're just like beam, you're just
A
lighting.
human sparkler. I've been
A human
defined
sparkler.
as a human
And
sparkler.
and you said I was a human, that I hold a lot of
Peace. You're
peace.
such a peacemaker. Yeah. So just to like share
It's
that
true.
concept with your audience, because I think it's so critical. When you have an ecosystem, when you have a vision, when you have a dream,
Yeah.
when you have any of these things, as the visionary leaders that are listening to this podcast do, and I'm certain
Yeah.
that they have something more inside of them that they haven't even produced, is stop marketing what you think people want to hear. Stop marketing the
Yeah.
elements of
Yeah.
the structured
Yeah.
offer value offer, no, like stop that
It's
and
exhausting to hear you just say that. It's
I
exhausting to hear
know.
you say that.
Like if your content calendar was just who you innately are called to be and who you are gifted at being because of the way that you abide in your identity, the one who identifies you, okay? Nobody else, no other human being can do that. Your spouse can't do it, your kids can't do it, your business doesn't do it.
Mm,
Is you will have an abundant fruit. And what I mean by fruit is it's referencing Galatians 5:22, which says
right.
the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and long-suffering. Okay,
Mm,
if you were to go through that, just rewind 15 seconds, do it again, listen again, and choose the one that you feel is your abundance factor. If you feel, people would say it's your it factor. I think that's what Emily Ford talks about. Like,
yeah.
what is your it
Your
factor?
it factor.
For
Yeah.
me, it's joy. And it's the same thing that the enemy tried to pollute. The same thing that in that darkest of darkest seasons, that masked moment, that he was trying to say, you have to show up like that. You don't have a choice. This is how everybody needs you. And I became exhausted in that idea. Now it's so abundant. It's so life giving. I know the power source that I get to
Yeah.
plug into in order to give that. But the variable here is when I market, I am not a commodity in the sense that it's going to run out. And you'll hear
Right.
that like while supplies last. Well, this supplies is eternal, okay? So Dana can come to me from a relational standpoint and say, "Hey
Hmm.
Tamra, I need something from you today." Guess what? All I got is peace for you today, sis, but it's abundant. And that's the very thing that she likely needs. She doesn't need me to
Mm,
build her ecosystem. Cool, that'd be fun if we did that together. She doesn't need me to publish
mm,
her book. That'd be awesome and such an honor. But at the end of the day, here's my tombstone. I want to be remembered as that joy bomb. I want to be remembered as that joystick because that's the thing that's going to create lasting transformation in another human being, not the thing that they choose to build for
yeah.
themselves for 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
you, Dana, have that peace factor. I think of all of the ones when I think of you, you create space for people, you listen so well, and your eyes are like so like connecting. You just like peer into someone's soul. So you being the coach that you are allows
Yeah.
people to kind of bear themselves to a place of you then being able to see something internal and then pulling, like I said earlier, the gold out
Yeah.
of them. And that's a very rare quality, but I can come to you and every single time I get it because it's
Yeah.
abundant for you.
Yeah. Well, it's you see things so clearly, and that is true. It's the world. It's the work I do in the world. I A lot is unpacked, and I
Yeah.
and I have a lot of space to hold that, but I don't believe that I hold it.
Right.
It's not something this
So good.
physical or this mental. I couldn't do it
Couldn't.
alone.
Yeah, you
It
so
just
couldn't.
it's yeah.
I
It's
had
just
this
too much.
moment on this women's retreat. I was in Punta de Mita, Mexico, and I had brought 12 women. And the cool things about these retreats, and I'm sure most events, like people don't know each other and
Yeah.
you don't know who's going to show up. So you
Yeah.
are just like prayerful, like, I hope all these women get together in another country and their synergies work and their energy works and they fight like cats and dogs or whatever. It was 3 in the morning and I mentioned my trauma. And it's, again, I share it in my book and I'll share it on podcasts if I feel led,
Yeah.
but it's not like the one thing. Like people don't
Yeah.
know this about me unless they've investigated. But 12 out of 12 women shared sexual trauma stories. Some of them for the very first time, and they were in their 50s. They had never shared it with their parents. They had never shared it with their spouses. They had never shared it with their kids. They have public platforms. They've never shared it. And
Yeah.
I was 3 in the morning and I was crying out to God. And I was like, I don't know how to hold this. Why
Yeah.
would you trust me with this? At the time, I think I was 34, 35. And I'm like, these women are older than me. Like they should have the wisdom. I don't know what to do here. And I look
Right.
out to the harbor of Punta de Mita, which if you ever want to go to epic whale watching, it's the most beautiful little quaint town to do so, but amazing whales right next to your boat. I see this flashing light. And it's just the top of this particular boat that's sitting in the harbor. But to me, it was this sign from God. And he said, all I ask you to do is to shine your light, right? So to be that joy bomb, to be that spark. And he's like, they come to the harbor that you've created, and I do everything else. Just get them to the harbor. Just get them to the harbor. And so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like weight lifted. I had this revelation of like, I don't have to do anything. I already
Yeah.
did what I needed to
I
do.
don't have to fix it.
I
I
don't
don't have
care.
to, yeah.
Yeah. And so
I just
that's what
have to
you get to
guide.
do every single day, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
So allowing people to just bear witness to the fact that, like, when you're displaying your fruit and people are attracted to that because they needed joy, right? It's the thing that they needed. But they didn't pay me for my joy. They paid me because they wanted to go do this thing and they wanted to, have self
Yeah.
reflection, and they pay you for something different. Yes. So don't say, hey, come pay me for peace, because
Yeah.
I think that's blasphemy.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it,
but your joy
right?
attracted them.
Correct.
It's a
It's the
mega
magnet.
attractor.
It's the
Yeah.
magnet
Yeah, it's
that
the
of your
magnet.
marketing. That's your
Hmm.
magnet marketing strategy forever moving forward. And then when they come into the inside of your ecosystem, now they understand the wisdom and the transformation incurs, and all of these other things happen. And it could happen with the start of a book, right? Let that be the first
Yeah.
thing that you do, or let it be a podcast, whatever it be. Just be you. That's so important.
How easy is it for you to see people clearly? Like you identified peace with me. It's true.
Mhm.
I hold a lot of space. But if I came to you and I said, okay, I need to rebuild this because like you said, I can't sell peace,
Yeah.
but that is probably the attractor.
Right.
Where would I go after that? Because there's so many women out there that are lost. They don't know how to market. They don't know how to show
Yeah.
up. They know they've got a gift.
Yeah.
And and I see it every day. And they don't know
Well,
what to do with that. And they're reinventing every
mhm.
month
Yeah.
and tearing it down and rebuilding and they're so busy. And I'm like, "Oh, that's so busy."
Yeah, it's
And
exhausting.
yeah,
Busy in our
exhausting.
is a four-letter word in our house that we're not allowed to say. So currently, Dana, you're cussing in my house.
What did I say?
You said busy. Busy is a
Yeah.
four-letter word we're not allowed to
I
say.
had to like reflect. What did
Yeah,
I
you're like, what
say?
did I say? No, so you use
Yeah.
the word intentional,
Yeah.
instead. So if someone is like, Tamara, you're so busy, I'm like, nope, I'm not. I'm actually not.
No.
And they're just kind of looking at me and they're like, I can never get on your calendar. I'm like, it's because it's intentionally full and you're not
Yeah.
on it. So you
Yeah,
didn't do
I
this
don't
due
glorify
diligence.
busy. I really do.
Oh,
I dislike that when people say that to
right?
me too.
But you're,
It doesn't rub against any
oh,
trauma, but
yes,
I am intentionally booked. I'm
focus.
intentionally my work
Yes.
in my world.
Yes.
My work of my work in my world. My
Yeah. I think
yeah,
you're right.
my
Your
work of the
work in the
world.
world.
That's
That's
it.
right. It's
It's
just a
booked out
beautiful
because it's my
alliteration.
passion.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
but I'm
So when
certainly not
people are
burnt out because it's
taking
aligned.
100%, and that's the variable. You will see that, you will
Yeah.
feel that if it's out of alignment, you're going to feel burnt out, you're going to
Yeah.
feel that need for rest. But to go back to your question of like, how
Yeah.
would you take this fruit? How do you stop building? How do you
Yeah.
market from a place of alignment? Is first off, turn everything else off. When I went to Costa Rica last week, I did a digital detox, and I wasn't
Mm.
comparing, I wasn't analyzing other people, I wasn't thinking, oh well, she did this publishing way, this way, she did this marketing strategy here.
Mhm.
And you come back into yourself and your creation, your creativity. That's what we get to do every day, is to co-create. And so I would much rather you, Dana, say, Tamara, I have a good idea. And it is an idea that I've actually seen 5,000 times. Not because you've seen it, but because you had the divine idea. And so did 5,000 other people. But if
Right.
you saw 5,000 other people doing something, and then you came to me and said, 5,000 other people are doing this, so I must do this, which is what most people are
Mm.
doing, then I'm like, that's not going to work for you. It's not going to land because it doesn't feel aligned to you, because you're looking at everyone else, you're comparing, you're setting yourself up for failure. And so to know that something you divinely do out of that space of like play, out of that place of wonder, out of that thing of what
Mm.
delights you, these words are not used in business. They're used in the Bible, but that is a business book. If you've ever read it before, it mentions money more than any book you'll read. And so if
Yeah.
you want to see how do I operate in this place of overabundance, right? Like there is a place for you to do that and a space for you to do that, and it exists in the co-creation process.
Woo. Should we leave it there? I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's like I'm clapping, but if I clap, there's going to be balloons that are going to
See,
start
is it
falling
gonna
again.
stop? Yeah, I'm looking
Where
for the
all
confetti.
YouTubers
It's
are going
not
to say that,
dropping.
yeah, your confetti, your balloons that keep going off. Wow. You know what? I don't think there's much out there. In finishing my book, I wanted to come up with some really great quotes. And I said, I like this quote and this quote. And she goes, it's all biblical. And she goes, I just gave her things that I loved.
So
And she goes,
good.
oh, it's again and again and again. And I'm like,
So
really? I don't
good.
think so. I said, I think that one's in like a, and she goes, you know what? Nope. You're back to the
Yep.
Bible. You're
Oh,
back there
so
again. And I
good.
was trying to be diverse in my quotes
Sure.
and she says that's not a lot of diversity. And I'm like, but it kind of is because across
It
the
is.
board you can find it anywhere.
It is. I'll tell you this is I'm on this board called the Relational Flourishing Group. And essentially our intention is to go into cities and help transform their boards and their community boards
Mm,
into a place of relationship first, which is the
mm,
last thing. But one of the leaders on our board talks about this idea of things being stained glass versus plain glass. So stained glass
mm.
is the biblical lens. Plain glass is what everybody else's windshield looks like, right? The mass majority of the population. You can have something that's stained glass internally for yourself. And so your quotes and verses and all those things can be there, but you can also curate a space, which is why I can speak on so many different types of stages and podcasts that aren't
Yeah,
faith driven, because I
yeah,
can talk plain glass all day long. And
yeah,
people are like, wow, that's so much wisdom. Wow, there's so much joy. But I know that you serve a community that's open to the both and. And so
yeah,
for me to be able to come up authentically in that and say, hey guys, this is the stained glass truth of my life versus
yeah.
here's the plain glass, which actually gives more question, more curiosity, and more connection because people are like, I need what she has. Versus
Exactly.
the person who's listening from a stained glass lens is like, well, I know who gave it to her, so I'm going to run there. And that's what I want.
Yeah.
Unfollow me, follow him, and watch what happens to your life. It will completely change, as did mine. I am not the same person. And I can't even see myself in pictures pre 30-year-old version of Tamra.
Wow. You know what? And I have watched your evolution every year. Just I wouldn't say blossom because you were already kind of like bloomed. The
Yeah.
full flower was out there, but
Yeah.
I am just watching the full garden grow. And it's just,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's magnanimous. And it just pulls me. It's just it's bigger. Every time I go to look for you, I go to look for you. And
Thank
it's like it's brighter, it's bigger. It's I'm like, "Oh my gosh, look what she's doing now. Is that her seventh best-selling book? Is that now it's eight?" You know, it that comes from a lot of passion and a lot of divine guidance.
Yeah. And a
So,
lot of other people. Remember, she said community. That's how
yeah,
movements are made with a
yes.
lot of other people and it not being self centered. We can
Yeah.
create personal brands all day long, but personal
Yeah.
brands don't exist without other personal people. So
Oh,
I
I love the
couldn't do
fact you
it
said that.
without them.
Yeah.
I literally couldn't. And to celebrate other authors and to be in a small part of their story, there's nothing better, Dana, than witnessing someone who's holding their story in a print version of a book for the first time. It
Yeah.
it takes my breath away because they just have tears rolling down their face and they're signing something and they're like, is this my real life? Because like you said at the beginning,
Yeah.
everyone wants a book, but not many
Yeah.
people will execute. And so
Yeah.
those execution moments, I just get to be like a proud mama and just like, I'm so proud of you. This is incredible and celebrate alongside them. So it's an
Wow.
honor to do what I get to do every day. I know you feel the same about your
Yeah.
work,
A
and
lot of
it's so
celebration.
great that we get to like just
Yeah.
coexist in that way because there's no competition here.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, you just like speak the truth and it's like I took my glasses off. I abandoned my 4 pages of notes and I just leaned in and I'm just really connected to the story and to watching this unfold. So, okay, my final question.
Okay.
What feels like love in your life right now?
Oh, I have a puppy. So that is like just a non-human
Puppy
way
love.
of connecting. I love her so much. She's wild, but I love her. And
What kind of dog?
she's a Shih Tzu toy poodle. So
Oh,
so cute, so tiny. And then I just got back from Costa Rica with my mom who turned 60. And it just was a reminder of we've come through a lot during that season that I was alluding to. We were
Yeah.
estranged for a season. And to be able to just like love on her, watch her walk in
Mm.
her faith because of the bravery I had to walk out mine and face my trials and tribulations. That's true love, that we can do what we did and still love one another. And I hope that I get to leave that legacy in my daughter someday.
Wow. How can people find you? I mean, where's your favorite hub? What do you
Yes.
got coming up? I want to know it all. And then, of
Okay.
course, we're going to have all the links too, but let's just lay it out.
Yeah, so I hang out most on Instagram, and everything that you heard me say today, I want to know what the fruit, what's your favorite fruit? What the fruit? Tell me. I'll pray over that. I'll pray into it for you. I love voice memo, so you can leave me a line, but I'm probably going to voice memo you back. And then I have an annual conference every year called the Founder Con, which is premised on Ephesians 2:19. Go look it up. I'll draw you to the word. And
Mm,
the concept is for leaders who are ready to, whether they're faith founded or faith forward, plain glass or stained glass,
mm,
operating in marketplace ministry, which every single one of us who are believers, that is what we're doing. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or you're the janitor. I call myself a janitor every day. And I'm okay with that role. I'm blessed by that role. And additionally, I've got so many different books. So you can go to tamraandress.com. It's just Tamra. And then all the links are below, tamraandress.com. I'm excited to share and be a part of this community with you.
Tamra Andress, you have been beyond joy, beyond a little joystick. I have enjoyed every minute of your story, this conversation, this connection. It's just from day one that I met you, I felt connected, and I'm so blessed to have you in my life.
Thank
I
you.
know people are going to love this.
I love
I would listen to this on people out there, listen to this
it.
on repeat, listen to it again and again, and I can guarantee you, and I don't say guarantee a lot, you're going to feel better. Something's going to shift and you're going to feel better. So thank you again for being here. It's a blessing to be in your world, part of your world, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Likewise. And you guys got to tune in. The Messenger Movement podcast is going to have Dana on it. So I'm going to put her in the hot seat.
Yeah, all the links are going to be here. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up to the Dana Grant Show today. And bye, Tamra. Bye, everyone.